अस्सलाम वालेकुम जी। रजिस्टर एंड काउंटर्स आज हमारा टॉपिक होगा जिसको हम इन डिटेल देखेंगे। सो पर्टिकुलरली सम इश्यूज रिलेटेड टू द गेट्स। विल स्टार्ट फ्रॉम हेयर। प्रोपोगेशनल डिले क्या चीज़ है, कैपेसिटेंस कैसे इंट्रोड्यूस करती है डिले को। सो ऑल फिजिकल डिवाइसेस हैव डिलेज ड्यू टू द चार्जिंग एंड डिस्चार्जिंग ऑफ parasitic capacitance and interconnection resistance. These are basically unwanted capacitors that are present in the line, और जिसकी वजह से क्या है कि आप जब इंफॉर्मेशन अपनी कोई भेजेंगे तो उसमें क्या है कि वो आइडली स्पीकिंग तो सही यूँ जाना चाहिए, लेकिन प्रैक्टिकली इट विल गो लाइक दिस थिंग। सो दिस इज़ बेसिकली द प्रोपोगेशनल डिले। सो जो भी आपके पास आप चार्ज इलेक्ट्रॉन्स का भेज रहे हैं, these unwanted capacitors and resistors basically make this thing कि आपकी जो है वो एनर्जी जो है वो लूज़ होती जाती है, ठीक है, और जब वो पहुंचती है तो वो उस हिसाब से नहीं पहुंच रही होती है। सो दीज आर प्रोपोगेशनल डिलेज एंड वेयर डू दीज कैपेसिटर्स कम फ्रॉम। मोस्ट पैरासिटिक कैपेसिटर्स आर इन द क्रॉसिंग लाइन, इन द इंटरकनेक्शन। ये तो सिंबल्स हैं, स्कीमेटिक सिंबल्स हैं। इन रियलिटी जो आपके पास सर्किट्स हैं वो काफ़ी ज़्यादा कॉम्प्लेक्स होते हैं। ये एक आप देख सकते हैं 300 मिलीमीटर का वेफर है जिसके ऊपर जो है कई आपके पास जो है वो करोड़ जो है वो ट्रांजिस्टर्स हो सकते हैं, और डिफरेंट लेयर्स, 9 लेवल ऑफ इंटरकनेक्शन। जो ट्रांजिस्टर or a gate looking like this thing is not comparable to this complex physical geometry. And these are again the transistors, and these are some diagrams of transistors in action in physical versus theoretical. So इनकी इंटरकनेक्शन की वजह से ये अनवांटेड जो है वो आपके पास डिलेज जो है वो जनरेट हो जाते हैं। So flip-flop में timing parameters and metastabilities are issued. If one violates the setup time and hold time, the flip-flop can go into a metastable state. Metastable state हमने पहले भी define की थी. It's a state in which you cannot exactly define the output or the behavior of the system. So in order to avoid the metastable state, we must assure that proper setup time and proper hold time are assured with the signal. So metastability के अंदर one cannot predict this ball can go on the one side and the zero side as well. So the system is not basically stable. So if the system is not stable, it will behave randomly. So if this happens before the next clock edge, the circuit will see a defined input. The longer the clock period is, the less the chance of synchronization failure. So we need to avoid these stability issues in our designs. So practical consideration when designing digital systems, we use the concept of debouncing. So in many cases the input come from push button, and sensors switches exhibit bouncing, are not synchronous and give multiple input sampled many times maybe. So this gives a catastrophic failure of timing problem, and the solution is basically debounce the switch, use a synchronizer or a one pulse circuit. So basically the point here that we want to convey is that if we use a switch is basically a mechanical system, and when we push it, let's say here is 5 volt and this the system. So this, when button is pushed, it will bounce back no matter how slow we try. It will push back, like if you throw a ball from a table, it will bounce back. So is the case with the push button. When we are going to push it, it is going to make multiple times of contact within the duration when the button is pushed. So what is bouncing? When a switch is closing a switch, the switch contact bounces back and forth and give multiple pulses. Instead of giving one pulse, it gives multiple pulses. This is a, let's say, pull up configuration in which this is a let's say a switch normally in this position. When we push the button to this position, it will oscillate, and hence these pulses between 5 volt and ground will be generated. Now the intention was to make this switch from 0 to 1 one time, but instead it may go on and off for multiple times. So if you are using some sequence where in which this pulse can make an effect, let's say आप काउंटर बना रहे हैं कुछ ऐसे टाइप का जिसने काउंटिंग करनी है बेस ऑन दी पल्स, तो आप दबाएंगे एक दफ़ा या पल्स प्रॉब्ली आपके इस पर से एक दफ़ा दबी है लेकिन वो मल्टीपल जो है वो बाउंसेस डिटेक्ट करेगा. So the two resistors will keep the SR equal to 0. One solution in the bouncing circuit is being used such type of a configuration. If we push the button and let's say multiple pulses are generated, but due to this configuration will have a stable pulse at the output. So this is one debouncing circuit that we can use in our digital designs. So likely violation of setup times, issue with asynchronous inputs. So if we have like clock based designs and signal from sensor violates the setup time. Remember, the setup time was the time that is required that the signal comes before the clock. The input signal must arrive for a fixed period before the clock so that it can get registered. So asynchronous inputs from sensor can cause timing problem if setup time is violated. So asynchronous input means that input can come at any instance of time, like your newspaper guy or the milkman, they can come at any instance of time. You cannot say that they will come exactly at this time. In asynchronous input in the digital system are in the similar way, they can come at any instance of time. So we need to design the system in such a way that whenever the input comes, it basically does not violate the setup time constraint for a stable system. Otherwise your system will go to metastability, and hence your system will not be a stable system. So a flip-flop that can get into metastable state when the setup or hold times are violated, this can happen for asynchronous system, push button, sensor, etc. So these are some issues that may arise with this thing. So in order to avoid this thing, let's say our input is coming, we can add a synchronizer. If our input is going to multiple maybe in this case D flip-flops, it might be possible that different inputs are received at different outputs. So let's say input is basically the same for Q0 and Q1, but due to the asynchronous input, this flip-flops receives the output, but this does not. So in order to do that, we can add a synchronizer, again a flip-flop that will receive the input, will ensure that both the flip-flops receive the same signal. That was one clock previously was received on the DI synchronizer. So now only the synchronizer may get in the metastable state. However, there is a good chance that by the end of the clock period it went in one of the stable states. So if you use a synchronizer, the output will be synchronized. So in a bigger picture, we are discussing these things because we want to make a system like high level systems, high level architectures of computers, maybe a SAP, simple as possible computer, maybe a different type of a computer that will use multiple of these things that we have studied during the course, like the ALUs, arithmetic logic unit, that has the adder, subtractor, multiplier, control units, registers, muxes, tri-state buffers, decoders, control logic, instruction registers. So we want to control and design this architecture that can help us use the digital logic design in a better way. So what are registers? Again, register is a collection of flip-flops together with some combinational logic that performs data processing tasks, storing data, moving data, etc. In theory, a register is a sequential logic which can be defined by a state table. More often, think of a register as storing vectors of binary values. So simple storage register is basically a D flip-flop register holds information on every clock cycle, and you can get the information uh, when the clock, let's say in this case is the positive clock. When the positive clock comes, whatever data is available at D0, D1, D2, D3 will be loaded into Q0, Q1, Q2, Q3. To store or load information should be controlled by a signal, and if you want to clear this thing, we'll use this pin, will provide a 0 it, and all data will be cleared. Simple storage register. So these are the registers and these are the inputs. If you open this block diagram, this is a high level block diagram, and this is again a flip-flop based detailed diagram of the whole system. सो यहाँ पे D0, D1, D2, D3 सारे कनेक्टेड हैं, सारे आपके पास क्लॉक्स जो हैं वो कॉमन है, और रीसेट आपके पास सारे कॉमन हैं. तो जैसे एक इंडिविजुअल डी फ्लिप फ्लॉप काम करता था, आप इसको 1 देंगे, राइजिंग क्लॉक देंगे तो ये 1 स्टोर कर लेगा, और 0 देंगे, राइजिंग क्लॉक देंगे तो ये 0 स्टोर कर लेगा. So shift registers move data laterally within the register towards MSP or LSP position. In the simplest case, the shift register is simply a set of D flip-flops connected in a row like this. So in simple shift register, एक रजिस्टर जो है उसकी आउटपुट जो है वो दूसरे की इन बन रही होगी, दूसरे की आउट तीसरे की इन, तीसरे की आउट चौथे की इन, और यहाँ से आउट हो जाएगी. So this is the main aspect of a shift register. This can be serial in, and if you take the output from this side, serial out, or you can get the data serial in, or you can take the data serial in, parallel out. Yes, valid data will be available after 4 clock cycles. So these are just shift register. So behavior of a shift register, this table is given. Let's say in is the input. Initially at T0 clock cycle we have N0, and nothing is stored in ABC or out. In T1 this 0 is going to move in the A, and new input is going to be arrived here. So as the clock progresses, the input that was here at T0 has reached the C, and new inputs come at every instance of clock. So as this 0 in the next is going to be here, and let's say this is going to be here 1 1 0, and on the next clock cycle this 0 is going to be getting out of the shift register, and this value will not be available, and this value will take its place. So this is the way how shift register basically works. Very easy. These are just digital structures to hold data in a particular fashion, and it can be controlled by control pins. So parallel load shift register, by adding a mux between each shift register stage, data can be shifted or loaded. This shift is low. A and B are replaced by the data on the DA and DB lines, else data shift rights on each clock. So यहाँ पे if you have an in, and let's say shift is 1, this is going to be enabled, and your input is going to be like this. So if you have parallel load data DA coming from this input, this is again an input, parallel load input. You want to basically load these registers parallelly. We want to give input DA and DB simultaneously to save the clock cycle instead of getting the data from the in pin and waiting from the for 2 clock cycle. You can use parallel load shift registers directly. If you, let's say, give here a 0, this is going to be 1 here, and this is going to be inactive, this is going to be active. Directly DA is going to be loaded into this register, and DB is going to be loaded in this register. So these are like parallel load registers in which load value parallelly can be loaded in the registers. And if you want to load the value serially, we can use the shift as 1 and then transfer the value from here to here. So all the discussion is about configuring the known blocks to such architectures where we can basically control their flow according to our requirement. Parallel load shift register with load. Let's say we are using this table to implement, and these are muxes and D flip-flops and configuration in which we can configure according to this functional table. So if 0 0 is there, 0 0 is there, so this is going to be connected here, and this is going to be a feedback loop. So 0 0 means no change, the same value is going to be stored again and again. So if, let's say, this is 0 and this is 1, so it is going to load parallel data. So new data is going to be stored here, new data is going to be stored in every value. So if we have, let's say, 1, and here we have it doesn't really matter what we have here, this is a don't care. So if we have on shift we have 1, and let's say because the third input is not there, we have only 0 1 2, and this second input will basically travel here, CLN, and this is going to be shifted like this thing. So value is going to shift down from Q0 to Q3, Q0 to Q1, Q1 to Q2, and so on. So this is like shift down from Q0 to Q3. So these are some aspects. So timing, when we give a clock and we give a load signal, the signal will be loaded to the shift register. Bidirectional shift registers are again another important aspect. Bidirectional shift registers, let's say we have 0 0 0 1 1 0 1 1. If we have a 0 0, no change. 0 0 means this is connected like this, and the data is going to remain here. If it's again 0 1 0 1, so it is going to shift down. This value is going to get here, and this value is basically traveling in a shift down mode. So if it's a 1 0 1 0, 1 0 means 2, so this is shift up. This value is going to be getting to this register, shift up. So if we have a 1 1 1 1 means 3, so new value is going to be loaded in these registers. In this topology, only one section is shown for an understanding. This can be a bigger circuit, like in this block diagram, a 4-stage circuit, maybe an 8-stage circuit. This is the mod pins through which we select which mod we required. Mod, after mod, this is a clock, and then we have a serial in pin, serial input pins, and let's say parallel input pins and parallel output pins. So counters are sequential circuit which count through a specific state sequence. They can count up, count down, or count through other fixed sequence. Two distinct types are in common use. Ripple counters. Clock is connected to the flip-flop clock input on the LSB bit of the flip-flop. For all other bits, flip-flop is output is connected to the clock input. Thus, the circuit is not truly synchronous. Output change is delayed more for each bit towards the MSB, and these are basically low power consumption. So ripple counter, like the ripple adder, take the input from the previous and again are in that manner. So synchronous counter, a clock is directly connected to the flip-flop. Clock input logic is implemented in the desired state sequencing. So ripple counter, when there is a positive edge on the clock input A complements the clock input for B flip-flop is complemented output of the flip-flop A. So ripple counter, the clock is not same. The clock is only given to the initial first level circuit, and the other thing is that the clock for the next stage is basically the inverted signal from here. So this basically is used for the counting. So let's say if we have 0 0 0 1 1 0 1 1, again because it was a 2-bit counter, will again start with 0 0. So delays in ripple counter, starting with C is equal to B, B is equal to A is equal to 1. The next clock increments the count, and thus we can have our counter. But these delays, the delays of the propagational delay in fine timing detail, the clock to the output delay TPHL causes an increasing delay from clock edge for the each state transition. So because there is a clock transition in every aspect, and each clock each output is clocked to the next, so the worst case delay will be NTPHL. N is the number of the number of counter. If you have, let's say, a small counter, a 2-bit counter, this will not have a significant effect. But let's say if it's a 24-bit counter, then the delay is the worst in this scenario. So these circuits are called ripple counter because the change is ripples through the chain of the flip-flop. Each transition occurs after a clock to output delay from the stage before. So disadvantage is slow operation due to delay, intermediate results which can give rise to unreliable operation in digital circuits. But advantage is that the hardware is simple and the power is low. So to eliminate the ripple effect, use a common clock for each flip-flop and a combination circuit to generate the next state. So for an up counter, use an incrementer. So these are synchronous counter, like combinational system with let's say fixed input of 1 maybe, and then we have like storage. This is a combinational element, this is a storage element. Let's say if this is 1 plus 1 2, and then 2 plus 1 3 is going to be stored here at the input of the combinational circuit. 3 plus 1 4 4 is going to be stored here, and then feedback 4 plus 1 5, so on. This is basically the synchronous counter, and clock changes at basically in the synchronous counter, the clock is basically the same for all these things, and you can see this counting 0 0 0 0 0 1 0 1 0 0 1 1, and then basically 1 0 0 1 0 1 1 1 0 1 1 1. So whenever this the clock basically changes, the output is affected. So you can see the pattern here. So on every positive clock, Q0 changes its bit position on every rising edge of the clock, and this is a XOR gate. If when enable is equal to 1, XOR inverts Q0 is equal to D of bar, and this Q of 1 is basically seeing this negative edge of clock. Whenever this Q0 negative edge is at place, Q1 is going to change its position. Whenever Q0 is negative, Q1 is going to change its position, and whenever Q1 is going to change its position, Q2 is going to be complemented. So this is basically a synchronous counter if we implement it with this enable philosophy. So synchronous counter parallel gating, replace AND carry chains with AND in parallel. Advantages: reduces the path delays called parallel gating, like carry locale adder. This can be much faster. Synchronous counter with arbitrary sequence counter is not like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can have a counter of any type, any particular sequence that we desire to do, so that is repeating after a certain interval of time. So if we need such type of counter, we can just start with a state diagram, state table, decide the flip-flops to use, find the combinational inputs to the flip-flop, draw or build the circuit. In this case, let's say the special type of a counter sequence is from 0, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 0. So this is a special type. Let we design this state table from this state diagram. So if input is 0, next is going to be 1. If 1, then 2. If 2, then 4. If 4, then 5. If 5, then 6. If 6, then back to from 6 back to 0. So we can use the method, maybe counting order, and use the D flip flops to convert these equations to equaling let's say flip flop equation for DA, DB, DC. I hope you can now easily convert, use the K-map techniques to build these things from the state tables, and this will make this thing possible. In this scenario, there are no input, there are present states, because present state is basically the input of the previous. So here it is easier to understand this from this table, and then implement these equations to a known system. So DA, DB, DC, and that's simply implementation. This circuit now implies this diagram. This state table will be implemented through these equation with this circuit. Thanks to state machine and state diagrams, we can program complex patterns to digital circuits very easily. So the clock is going to synchronize, the reset is going to initialize. If you want to reset from the 0, you can use the thing. So what about the unused states? Complete the state diagram and see that by yourself. So asynchronous counters, the flip-flop do not change state at exactly the same time, as they do not have a common clock pulse, also known as ripple counter. The input clock pulse ripples through the counter, and delay is basically a drawback in ripple counter. We have discussed this earlier. This is just another diagram of let's say 2-bit ripple counter, and this time we are using a JK flip-flop. Previously we were using a D flip-flop. So JK flip-flops can also be used to make ripple counters, and we know if JK both inputs are tied to 1, whenever a clock comes, the output is going to be inverted at each interval of time. So this inverted output is the input for the next clock. So if you have a 2-bit ripple counter, you can use JK flip-flops to make these counter as well, and we will do the counting sequence. If this is a 2-bit, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0 back. Likewise, we can increase the number of stages just by adding a JK flip-flop in a cascade mode, like we did in binary adder, one bit full ripple binary adder, and adding is another state, hence increase the binary count. So asynchronous reference counter again will have propagational delay issues, and if accumulated delay is greater than the clock pulse, some counter state may be misinterpreted, because the sync is going to be out and because the delay is going to be there, so some inter stages may be out of sync with the initial clock. So this is basically a negative edge system. There we were taking the output from Q of bar, but here it's a negative edge clock, so we are going to take the output from the Q of 0 to the next flip-flop. This is basically working on the negative side of the clock. So counters can be used as frequency dividers. Each stage of Qn will divide the frequency. If the above figure, each Q is divided by the frequency. This means if your initial clock is 100 Hertz, every Q naught will divide it by 2. So Q naught will be 50 megahertz, Q1 will be 25, and Q2 will be 12.5 megahertz. This is going to happen. So frequency division is like, it's saying the similar thing, that these are your initial clocks. If this is 100 megahertz clock, you can see this when it comes from rising edge to rising edge, this is one side from rising edge to rising edge, and for the next rising edge to rising edge, this is the low side. So if this type of pattern is shown and this is clock was 100 megahertz, the second clock that is basically taking this thing, this is going to be divided by 2, 100 divided by 2, 50, and this is going to be 50 divided by 2, 25, or you can say 100 divided by 4. So this is frequency division. We can use JK flip-flop as counter, as discussed earlier. Some similar diagrams. Parallel data storage. We have already discussed parallel data storage, different structures of D flip-flops to do the parallel data storage. Register with parallel load. Register with parallel load. We have like D0 in clock and clear, and if the data is coming, it can be loaded directly from the D0, D1, D2 and D3. So registered with parallel load and alternative. So in this case you can have the data loaded directly, like if load is basically 1, so this is going to be ineffective and this is going to work, and the data is directly going to be loaded into the register. But let's say if it's a 0 here and this is a 1, this is going to be enabled and this is going to be disabled, and the value that was stored is going to be feed back and stored. So load will load a new value. If it's a 0, it will store the previous value. So shift registers, we have discussed the shift register, serial in, serial out shift registers, different stages of the shift registers. You can see these things in the slide. More diagrams are discussed from different books to describe the different viewpoints about these registers. These examples, 101 is loaded into this register, and all its data path, all its lifetime is shown, how the data comes. At this point the data is completely filled with this 1010 value, and after it's filled, it goes out from this queue one at a time, one clock at a time, and at last there is no data
in the shift register. So shift register, some examples of waveforms, how the clock behaves with the inputs, and how data moves at each clock until the data leaves, from entering to leaving. This basically whole path is shown, and this happens on, again, if it's a rising edge, on the every positive rising edge of the clock. So shift in, shift out, the theory is stated here. Serial in, parallel out. Serial in data, it will take 4 clock cycle to fill this thing, and then the data can be taken out parallelly, Q0, Q1, Q2, Q3, or it can be taken out from this pin only. In that case, it would be a serial in, serial out. So it's all about perception, how you take the data from these connected D flip flops, and depending upon the architecture you choose for your data movements, you can choose that particular configuration. In similar cases, with a little bit more control, you may have seen LIFOs, FIFOs, stacks. They use these type of internal storage elements as well. So data in and data out, the movements of data on every rising edge of the clock. This is a high level block diagram, and this is basically data in, and as the clock proceeds, the data moves further. So here a data stream is shown that on this clock cycle, 0 was received at the Q0, and on the next clock cycle this 0 basically goes here, and the new 1 has arrived. This 1 is received here, this 1 is received here, and on the next clock cycle this 0 goes here, and this 1 comes here, next one also comes, and again on the next clock cycle this 0 is again here, and the ones are preceding to it. So shift or node, this is a function table for a resistor. Let's say if we have 0 0 no change, 0 0 no change, means that if we have 0 here and 0 here, so there is going to be a no change. You can fill these things, just try to understand one block of it, don't try to memorize all this thing. This is just a control structure for the understanding. No need to remember all the big diagrams, but you need to understand the functionality. So if 0 is 0, there is no change, means that 0 is going to be here, and the other is basically the other 0 is going to be at the other point. So this 1 is going to be here, this 1 is going to be here, this 1 is going to be here. So technically speaking, this path is activated. This is basically a no change. So if 0 1, shift is 0 and load is 1, so load 1 means that this is going to be active, and this 0 means that this is going to be active. So the new value coming from here is going to be loaded into this thing. So you can do the other thing, we have discussed that thing as well previously. So this is how these things are done in a cascading manner for bigger circuits. So exercise different practical questions for the understanding, and you can understand how these serial and parallel resistors work. You can also relate the book, and the book basically describes different scenarios which are available in this section. We have discussed these serial, parallel, registers. Serial transfers are not discussed, and like 4-bit serial shift register, we also discussed this thing in the class as well. So let me just call it sniping 2. There was a query to discuss this thing. I think it should have been discussed. So this is mode table, and how this works. So this is basically a universal shift register. 0 0 no change. You are using a 4x1 mux, and we are using a D flip flops. So if 0 0 is placed here, this 0 is going to be connected here, and this is the data path, and no change. If let's say 0 1 is placed, 0 1 and 0, basically 1 0, so this is going to be placed here, and you can see serial right. This is going to get here, and this is it how it's going to move. So no need to understand the complete remind all the configuration, big configuration. You can just understand 2 or 3 bit sections to understand its working, and see how these components work. So if it's basically a 1 0 1 0 1 0 shift left, so 2 input is going to be connected here. So this is like this is the storage. This is how data is going to move from this structure. So you should understand this structure. If any of these structures are given, should be able to recall and then justify how these structures basically work. So if let's say 1 1 is here, 3 parallel load, so its parallel load is very easy. The value from here are going to be loaded accordingly. So register with parallel load, clocks, all these are little tweaks with the known function blocks that we use, and we basically use them to understand how they work. So register with load, control, feedback, we have discussed this thing before. So register with load, control example, let's say if you want to use an adder subtractor that we have discussed previously as well, in which we had XORs and 1-bit adders connected, and then we had this X line. So this is a carry generator, this is the overflow generator. So register with load control can be used to transfer this data back if let's say 2's complement is to be taken. So if K1 equal to 1, R1 stores the results of addition or subtraction. So K1 equal to 1, this loaded value is basically transferred again to the adder subtractor. So we can use these registers, and these R2 and R1s are the similar you can say D flip-flop register that we have seen earlier. These are the similar registers, multi-bit registers. So data is stored in registers which compose of data paths. In many cases, one want to perform variety of arithmetic and logical operators on a set of data bits, 16-bit words. Addition, subtraction, shifting, loading can be done, and we use these hardwares to perform various tasks without changing the hardware. This is the beauty of it. We don't want to change the hardware again and again. We just want that the same hardware can be utilized by changing the content of the registers. So register transfer operation, the type of operation on the data will be determined by a controller, often called a control unit, and the division between the data path and control unit makes the design of complex system easier, and we use this the strategy of divide and conquer, in which registers play a key role in complex digital systems. So in register transfer we use the registers to store some data temporarily and then forward it to the appropriate block that will utilize it and solve the particular problem. So this is a basic architecture of maybe a computer which has an ALU. ALU will have arithmetic logic unit, control unit, adders, subtractors. It is going to have different type of decoders, control units, and these can be controlled by control unit and data path. So data path and control unit are each important part of the system. A control unit determines which operation and sequence of operation based on the status signals. Control signal activate various operations in the data path. Basically, this control unit is a large finite machine which controls the overall operation. In data path, the data is routed through the control unit, and the feedback signal is given through the status signals, and the output of data goes among to the various places. Store data in registers, perform operation on data specified by control unit. Provide status signals. Is defined by register and operations, which is basically register transfer organization, RTL, and elementary operations, micro operations are basically performed. So register transfer operation, the movement and processing of the data stored in the registers. Three basic components: set of registers, operations, and control of operations. So these are the three basic components on which this register transfer operation basically performs its work. So elementary operations, basic operations are load, count, shift, add, bitwise OR. All these operations we have discussed in detail. So elementary operations are called micro operation, and an 8-bit register will be again it is basically a R here, but it's basically a series of D flip-flops, and this is the least significant bit and this is the most significant bit. If we have a 16-bit register or a 32-bit register or a 64-bit register, then this register is going to become big. So if let's say we have a 16-bit register 0 to 7 and then 8 to 15, we can use two 8-bit register to make a 16-bit register. In this case, let's say program counter, this is the low byte 0 to 7 and the program counter, let's say high byte 8 to 15. So combinedly it's basically a 16-bit register. So conditional transfers occur in this scenario, like if k equal to 1, then R2 will have the value of R1. So if you want to implement this command, which looks like a C command or a programming command in terms of hardware, you can see that we have like two registers R1 and R2. So if K1 is 1, load is 1, so R2 is going to load the value which is coming from the R1. So where K1 is the control activity specifying a conditional execution of the micro operation. So whenever K signal comes, whatever is at the input which came from R1 register, it will be loaded into the R2 register. So the clock diagram basically shows the functionality. Logical grouping transfer,
moving data from one set of register to another, arithmetic, perform arithmetic on data registers, logic, manipulate data or use bitwise logical operations, shift data in registers. So these are the arithmetic operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. The logical operators like OR, AND, XOR, NOT, XNOR are basically the bitwise operation. Bitwise will work on the bits. So examples of micro operation: add the content of R1 to the content of R2 and place the result in R1. So let's say we have a content in R1 and R2 and we want to sum it up and store the result in back in the R1. This is basically a micro operation, a small minute operation that is performing a specific task, and that this R1 multiply with the content of R6, and the result is going to be, let's say, stored in a register which is named as PC program counter, and these are again the components of a computer. We can use these exclusive OR operation with the contents of R1 and R2 and store the results of R1. So the power of micro operation is that we can perform the various operations that we have read throughout the course, and perform them with registers. These registers will then the content of these registers can change. It is not necessary that the content is fixed. We can change the content of the registers, and hence without changing the wire we can use the same configuration with a different operand and content of the register. So example of micro condition: on condition K1 or K2 the content of R1 is logically bitwise odd with the content of R3 and the result is placed in R1. So R1 may have a content like 1 1 1 1 0 0 0 0, and let's say this is the content of R1, and the content of R3 is, let's say, 1 0 1 0 and 1 1 1 0. So let's say 0 0 0 0 1 1 0 1 1 0 1 1 1 0 1 1 1 1 1 0 1 1 1 1. So this is the new content that is going to be replaced in the R1. So these are the operations that change the thing. So we can have different type of arithmetic operations like R1 plus R2, the content goes to R0, R1 bar, 2's complement, R2 minus R1, 2's complement, increment, count up, count down. Note that any register may be specified for a source 1 or source 2 or destination. These simple micro operations operate on the whole word. Means that the content of the whole register R1 is a whole, maybe it's a whole word. Whatever you say will happen to all the bits, let's say 0 to n, let's say 7 bits. All the bits of this thing are going to be effective with this command. It is directly, you cannot say that I just want to change this content, bit of this content, and don't want to change the other bits. The whole word is going to be changed with a micro operation. Though there are techniques to save the other bits, but nevertheless they will be overwritten. So implementation on arithmetic micro operation. So this is a similar structure that we have seen before: adder, subtractor with carry overflow detection, and this also has the unit that we discussed earlier, which was basically adding or subtracting a 2's complement with an XOR gate and a selection line. If you applied a 0, it was doing addition. If you applied a 1 here, it was basically doing subtraction with 2's complement, addition. Okay, so let's say this is the control one, x bar k1, x bar k1. So which means that if 0 is applied here and 1 is applied here, so this operation is going to be performed. So our content of R1 is going to be here and R2 is going to be here. The sum is going to be stored back into the R1. So this operation simply means this thing. So with these two commands you can decide whether you are doing the addition and if you want to do subtraction xk1, so this means that 1 is going to be applied here and k1 is going to be applied here. So r1 is going to be here, r2 is going to be here, and now 2's complement, you can say addition, 2's complement addition is going to be implemented here, and the result is again going to be stored in r1, and this one also behaves as a +1, and inside there are XOR gates. You should remember this configuration we discussed earlier, that these are a full bit adder, and let's say this is S and this is B, this is A, this is sum. So these are present inside this thing, and this selection, this is the selection. So these are the thing that you can also see in the previous slide, chapter number 4, in which we discuss adder subtractor with carry over flow detection as well. So logic operations R0, R1 bar goes to R0 bitwise NOT, bitwise OR, bitwise AND, bitwise XOR. These again are logic operation. No need to remember them, but if their operation is specified, you should understand how it is going to be made. So bitwise means that the content are going to be changed bitwise. So if this is R1, this is R2. So if not of R1, you're going to affect all these lines. The output is going to be complemented. If R1, R2, so it's basically OR operation. So 0 0 0 1 0 1 0 0 0 1 0 1 0 1 1 1 1 1 0 1 1 1 1 1. So this is also called set operation. If we do R1 with R2, all the bits that are 0 are going to make all the contents of the R1 0. Wherever there is 0, the result is going to be 0. So only those bits will be saved that have a 1 mask to it. So this is basically called a clear operation. Wherever you have 0 at R2, its content is, you can say, it can be lost. This content is going to be clear. This is a mask. The 1 part is going to be saved and 0 part is going to be clear from the content of, let's say, R1. So that's why it's basically it clears the bit wherever the operation is basically 0, and let's say R1 XOR R2 bits are going to be complemented. Shift operations, shift S, R2, shift left and shift right. You move the data 1 bit to the let's say right or left and append a 0 to it. 0 fills and your number is a new number. So this is basically the shift operation. Shift left, shift right. In shift left R2, you basically shift the thing to left, and in shift right you make the thing right and fill the empty location with the 0. So mux operation on single register, mux based transfer, shift registers, ripple counters, synchronous binary counters, other counters. So micro operation on single register focuses on the implementation of micro operation with single register as the destination register. In addition to the register, there are some combinational logic needed. This considered part of the register is dedicated, and in contrast to shared logic for multiple destination registers. Mux based transfers make use of the multiplexer to allow multiple operation on single destination registers. So mux basically provide a pathway to select which component do you want to route to the output. So if there was no mux here, we would have needed 2 separate load registers, but with the help of a mux we can decide whether R2 content goes to R0 or whether R1 coordinate goes to R0 by just selecting this K1 selection pin. So this is a 2x1 n bit mux. N can be 4, n can be 8, n can be 32, n can be 1024. Means that number of wires will be going. But this, since it's a 2 cross 1 mux of n bit, the selection line is going to remain the same. It's going to remain with the 1 bit. So register transfer operation implement by the following. So if k1 dot k2, so r1 is going to be in r0. So if k1 is 1, k2 is 1, so what is going to happen? 1, this is going to be connected here. So k1 dot k2, by controlling these two single bits, you are basically implying that content of r1 will go to destination of r0. Very simple. And let's say if k1 is 0 and k2 is 1, applying this thing, you are saying basically this, that content of r2 is going to be loaded into r0. So by just these two simple micro operation to decide a bigger data moment, maybe this data moment is of 1024 bit, maybe it's of 8 bit, maybe of it's 16 bit, irrespective of the size of the bus, this data moment will take place by just these simple commands. And the content of these registers are going to change according to your inputs. No need to change the wires. So this was an exercise question that we discussed before as well. You can practice this thing. The answer is again given in the slide chat as well. So this was all, and we discussed different operations in this slide set, and you can go through in detail by seeing the slide set, practicing different type of registers. This chapter has some redundancy, but these are from different books, so to give an idea about the same things with different perspectives from different authors. So the overall aspect is that this is a sequential chapter in which sequential things are used along with the combinational things. So data movement should be clear. Some simple register, if you understand them, their data movements, you can understand the whole thing. So if they are bigger diagrams, just need to understand one or two how they work. Don't need to remember the whole diagram. You need to understand the block diagram, how the block diagram is working, and you need to understand how at least 2 or 3 bits are giving or taking data, and that's all. And then implement with the set components, and that is going to be it. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.